Welcome to Real Estate Riches Roadmap. We are here to talk about creative financing. It used to be called Basement Deals, but we're Real Estate Riches Roadmap, and welcome. So today we're going to focus on how do you find the best financial product for your real estate needs. Of course, Ed Grass, Charlie Einsman, both partners in Clear Sky, and we also have hard money loans. So with that, when do you think you need to start making decisions about financing your real estate acquisitions?
Right. We're not talking directly about financing your own house or condo. Although it's relevant in a way.
It is.
Yeah.
But this is when you're going out to invest in a property. When is it that you start making those decisions?
Well, you'd want to make connections in advance so that you know people and can get the money quickly. Because if we're talking primarily about distressed properties, speed is very important. If you're saying, you see all these signs, close in a week, buy your home for cash. If you're going to try to make a deal like that, you better have the cash.
So you're figuring out who you're going to work with first, right?
Right.
And then do you think, Charlie, when people come to you and they say, I've got a deal or I want a deal, I want to do a deal, do you give them a lender's letter then or do you wait a minute?
Well, for me, the number one thing that I have to understand is what is your disposition strategy? Are you going to, and remember, this is financing for real estate investments, right? Not your owner-occupied financing where you're just going to get a normal mortgage. So the first thing I say, well, how are we getting paid back? Are you going to fix and flip the house? Are you going to keep it as a buy and hold? And so a buy and hold means that you're going to eventually refinance out a hard money lender. So I have to understand the disposition strategy first. The second thing I have to understand is what is the house worth in its highest and best fixed up state, which is called the after repair value. So we have to understand that.
So do you figure it out or does your borrower client call you with that information and tell it to you?
Both. So I have them tell me what they think the after repair value is, and then I go ahead and figure it out on our end to see if we're close. A lot of our borrowers have done so many deals with us that I pretty much believe what they're going to say.
And so that makes their costs understood, right? To you as a lender, you know how much you can lend, how much rate and points you're going to charge when you know that quality of that borrower, right? When they're accurate, then you can be more generous in your offering, right?
Right. And then the other thing though is we need to understand what the renovation budget is, right? So if it's a fix and flip and it's a full gut, that's one thing. Yeah, that's a hell of a renovation budget. But if it's a buy and hold on a fairly new property, then that budget might only be $10,000 or $15,000. So we have to know what the renovation budget is. Also, too, the other question that I always ask is, how much of your own money do you have to put into the deal?
That makes a big difference on who they go with, right?
It does.
Well,
and how much they're going to pay.
Yeah, I was going to say, and this is where your knowledge of how mortgages work in your home is not invaluable. It's not lacking in value. That what you're really talking about essentially is loan to value. So you have to figure out what is the property worth now. And so how much of a percent of that will I give? Maybe all of it. For a private loan, and then how much is it going to be worth after the fact and all those costs. So it then gets more complicated, but when you're looking to find a hard money lender, private lender, business-to-business lender, a lot of phrases for it, you want to be able to justify those numbers, and then they're going to vet it and be sure that you're right. And in any event, you want to be right because you don't want to overpay.
Yeah.
If you pay too much, this is also known as bad. And so you may not be able to get a loan. So in that sense, this is LTV, like we all know from our own property. So anyways, sorry to interrupt.
Right, LTV being loan to value. And so one of the big things for us that we do is it also depends upon your experience level. So from us, we don't require like hard money, Clear Sky Financial or Clear Sky Holdings. We don't require any experience. We just require the fact that you're able to find a good deal. And so what you do is you bring the deal to our attention, and then we'll tell you how much we're going to finance against that deal. And so the reason why they call it hard money lending, there's a bunch of different terms out there. Private lending, hard money lending. I'm hearing real estate transition loans, RTL, because
break your kneecaps loans.
Yeah, breaking kneecap loans because people don't like the terminology hard money lending. But what you have to understand is that hard money lending came from the terminology that you're creating a loan against the hard asset.
So let me get to that for just a second. When you're saying the hard asset, then you spoke prior to that of loan to value. There's also another ratio, right? You're looking at the loan to value, and you're looking at the loan to cost, right, of the hard asset, of what the person's paying. So this is all playing into how much money you're going to lend, right?
Right. So for us, we have two different boundaries. Well, first of all, we are an asset-based lender, so we don't really check credit or have them fill out an application.
Well, this was going to be my question.
It's simple.
What about I've got, let's say I had a medical problem and I have bad credit, but I want to get into I'm just SOL to get a loan there's no way I'm getting a loan from a hard money lender. I mean, I can't get a loan for a regular house. How am I going to get a loan from you?
Well, the answer is, okay, if the hard money lender requires a certain income score and they're checking credit, then the answer is they're not going to lend under no circumstances.
Right.
So it's really important that the investor knows who the hard money lender is and what their background is, because a lot of hard money lenders aren't direct, right? And what I mean by direct is they're not using their own money to lend. They have this thing called a broker model. So they got to check a certain amount of boxes. They're going to lend you the money, but then what they're doing is they're selling the loan to another investor. So you have to understand what their business model is. And so the whole idea is you got to understand if they're a direct lender or are they using a broker model. Most hard money lenders are not direct lenders. They're just brokers. And so if they have bad credit, it doesn't matter how good the deal is, they're not getting a loan.
So it's almost like a bank loan.
With less requirements, maybe.
That's exactly what it is.
Like they might take a not perfect credit score, but if you're at 400 or whatever the worst thing is, they might ding you. But what you're saying is for your loans and other people who are direct, some people care a whole lot more about the value of the property. I mean, if you think about it theoretically, if I come to you, here's a property as it sits there, it's worth $500,000. After $200,000 more, it's going to be worth $1 million. If I have terrible credit, how much is that going to affect my ability to execute on that property? If you give me a loan for $400,000, that's all I'm asking for. What do you care? You're protected because if the borrower defaults, you're going to be able to foreclose on the property.
Well, that's the whole thing. That's the whole thing. We don't care. So if you're coming into us with a 550 credit score, I don't even know your credit score because, first of all, you're not filling an application. I don't even know your credit score. At that point, I don't care because I know you're going to fix and flip it. The whole idea is you're going to fix and flip it. The fact that a house is worth $1 million, you only need $400,000. I'm going to give you that money all day. Now, one of the things that I'm really concerned about, though, at that point is I'm more concerned about your contractor because you said they're going to do a $200,000 renovation. The last thing that we want to do as an asset-based lender is come in after a bad project, especially at $200,000. So we're going to vet out your contractor more than we're going to vet out you as Mr. Borrower.
Right.
If Mr. Borrower has a 550 credit score, they found a phenomenal deal, they're going to put $200,000 or $300,000 of their own money into the deal. We care more about the contractor.
So that's a great value if you come to Clear Sky Financial and we're concerned about the contractor and you've got a good contractor and a good asset and a good buy price, you're going to get great leverage from us. And you're going to get all of those construction funds that you need paid up front in front of each draw to go ahead and build this house. You could do very well, high leverage. We have a client who we were just trying to calculate his return. And he has an infinite return, or Charlie says a bajillion percent, because he's not putting any money into the deals. Now we know him. He's well known to us. The contractors he's using are well known to us. His deals are well known to us.
As a matter of fact, he's one of our students under Clear Sky Education.
So we know him a long time and we know him well in his methodology. On the other side of that, we have people that may not be perfectly well suited to us. Let's say you have really good credit. You have 20% to put down. You're buying a plain vanilla townhouse in a community that's well understood, and you can pay for all your construction budget yourself. You don't necessarily need our money.
Right.
You can go to a guy who's going to broker that loan or a company that'll broker that loan and do it at a national level and get you a little better rate.
As long as they have time.
It's going to take time. So that's the next thing you're going to trade off.
Yeah.
But if you have all those other excellent conditions of credit, cash, product, maybe you have time too. That works great. You're going to save a few percent. And I'd advocate for you. I'd say, hey, go ask to get pricing for that.
Right.
But in the reality of hard money lending and asset-based lending, people don't have a plain vanilla asset, all the money for the construction costs, great credit,
Time to
and
close.
time to close.
Yeah.
I mean, that is like a dream world.
I had that
happen.
once, but I got a Navy Federal investment loan
Yeah.
that was only 1% over what they were charging for regular houses. I mean, this was I think that was around 2008 when all
Yeah.
this stuff
Oh,
was
sure.
went crazy.
The market's
So they've
quite
all
different
pulled
than
back.
now. Right,
right,
right.
right. And but the trade-off being, because I'm Mr. Debbie Downer all
yeah.
the time.
Oh,
is,
yeah.
is the trade-off with all this stuff, what you're alluding to is the person, or saying directly, the person is going to get a better interest rate and less points the more time they have, all these other factors.
Yeah, for sure.
Whereas in our circumstance, the reason they come to you is you guys charge a higher percentage and points, but they don't have to worry about that. They can get the money fast and get the property, so they can go to that person and say, I will buy your property for this in 1 week. You ain't doing that with a regular loan.
Yeah.
Right, and that's the whole idea too, is the timing aspect of it too.
Right.
Because that's where you want to use an asset-based lender who is a direct lender, because they can close in two days or less. They can close in a week or less. And getting back to your story about the infinite return on your money, one of our students purchased a house for 5.25. It was worth $700,000. They put in $50,000 of renovation, $575,000. And we actually gave him a loan for $600,000 with 3 months of payments built in. Now, he sold that house for $685,000 in less than 90 days. And so we're going to get our $600,000 back plus a couple points that we built in on the back end. And so he's basically going to make a $40,000 or $50,000 profit with, oh, by the way, how much money did he put into it? Zero. So if you put zero into a deal and you're making $40,000,
that's a good deal all
I'm
day.
not a rocket scientist, but when I was in school and you divided 40,000 by zero, that was infinite.
Computer breaks, doesn't it?
The computer breaks. That's infinite.
Yeah.
So what's even? Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
So it's both. So the reason why you use a hard money lender, an asset-based lender, is number one, leverage, and number two, timing. You want to close that deal in less than a week.
Mm-hmm.
Let me ask you a question, and I know there's a lot of detail around this, but people have been talking a lot about subject to purchases, and what are we really talking about when we're talking about subject to purchases? And is that something you need a hard money lender for, or is that something you handle on your own?
Well, no. If you can get a subject to deal, what it is subject to means you're buying a house subject to the existing financing. Right. Don't confuse it with a loan assumption, because a loan assumption means you're actually assuming the loan and you're going through an application process.
Like a VA loan can be assumed in some circumstances.
A VA loan could be assumed.
So
in
you step into the shoes of the original borrower, basically.
Right, but you got to qualify.
Yes.
Like the original
As an
buyer.
assumption.
Right.
But
As an assumption.
on a subject to, you're really just making payments on behalf of someone else.
That's right. So what happens is the deed transfers into an entity or into your name, but the loan stays attached to the house. Now,
And the seller has to be agreeable, right? Because the seller's not released from that loan.
right, the seller is still on hook for the loan. The other thing that happens is that the bank that is the first mortgage doesn't know about this transaction. So they
What can happen?
So they have what's called a due on sale clause on their mortgage. So if they find out the deed has transferred, then they have the right. Now, I repeat this. They have the right to call the mortgage due on sale, but we've seen this only a couple times.
Yeah.
This doesn't happen. It don't, like our tax lien discussion on another podcast, 199 out of 200 chances they're not going to call the due on sale clause.
Right.
Yeah.
And the problem with that, because I'm Mr. Debbie Downer, I'm not sure why that came
Mr.
to
Lawyer.
mind today. Mr. Lawyer, is if it gets called, then you who've bought the property subject to are basically going to have to find other financing unless you have money sitting around.
That's exactly
because
right.
you'll have to pay off that first trust.
That's right.
But the reality is, this is a ray of sunshine, Sam, today. Where's my mug? That the reason that the banks don't call it is the banks are happy. If you have a performing loan in your books and it's being paid, do they really care?
Yeah.
Do they want to go through all this hassle? They're just collecting checks. This is the good side of being a bank.
Right. And also, too, though, keep in mind, there's two disposition strategies to a subject to purchase. Number one, you can fix and flip it. So even if you're fixing and flipping it, it should only take you 90 days, 3 months to 6 months. You're going to sell the house. You're going to get the final payoff request. That bank's getting paid off.
This is a very cooperative seller you have here. This isn't
That's right.
just a transactional deal.
This is a very cooperative
This is
seller.
a very cooperative seller.
Yeah.
And the second way to dispose it is keep it as a buy and hold. Now, keep it as a buy and hold means you're going to keep that loan in place until it gets paid off or until you sell the house or until you refinance it. But the reason why you're buying a subject to is, number one, you don't have to go through a qualification process. Number two, you can close it fairly quick. And the most important reason why you're buying a subject to property is because you're taking advantage of the interest rate, which we're in a little higher interest rate environment right now. So you're taking advantage of the interest rate environment, plus you're taking advantage of the time left remaining on that loan. So for example, if it's a 30-year amortization, which means you have 30 years to pay the loan back, well, sometimes in a subject to, it could be a 30-year amortization, but you could be 5 years into that AM schedule, so you're paying more and more principal.
Well, and what's so enticing and why people talk about subject to so much, particularly now, we all remember the interest rate environment a few years back.
Yep.
You know, a loan 5 years ago probably has an incredibly competitive interest rate. Not always. I mean, it might have been a high interest rate loan because they didn't have good credit, whatever. But if you check, it could be 3%, 4%. I mean, compared to what, 7% now?
That's exactly
so that is a real, and if you don't have to
win.
Right, you get away, and even if you're not gonna, even if you flip it, you still don't even have to take a hard money loan.
You don't
It's
have to
almost
pay
like
points, none of
points
that.
and everything else. But of course, the seller, in order to entice the seller, if I have the existing loan that you're taking subject to, I need to get something out of it, which may be I want out of here quick. So maybe you pay me $100,000 cash in order to do the subject to loan, and I'm out of there. And I know the loan's going to be paid off or paid regularly. I don't care. I'm out of the picture, and I've got my $100,000 without having to sell the property. And that loan is so valuable, right? If you look at the interest, especially if you're going to hold it as a rental, if you can get a subject to with like a 4% loan. That's like what, 3, 4, 5% a year of free money on that interest or the interest that you save. So everybody loves. Not the easiest thing to find. I was trying to do one with somebody, and then maybe it'll come back around.
Very hard.
It's hard to do, but if you can find it, it's worth doing. Otherwise, that's why hard money is around, and why there's a lot of people who do it.
Well, now you have listeners out there who are saying, what does hard money lending have to do with subject to financing? You guys,
We're talking about financing solutions.
No, you guys are wacky.
No,
You're
we're
just
talking
bringing
about
out all these
financing solutions. I got
So
others I want to talk about.
How does hard money lending have to deal with this, right? And so it's very simple. So as a hard money lender, we have done many, many deals where the buyer is an investor, obviously. They're doing a fix and flip, but they don't have any money for the renovation. They don't have any money to pay the seller their walking money. But they're going to fix and flip this house, but they're going to buy it subject to a first trust. And here's how hard money lending works on top of a subject to. Let's say the house, and we've had deals like this, many deals. Let's say it's a townhouse, and let's say the house is worth $300,000, right? ARV, after repair value, is $300,000. That's what it's worth fixed up. Well, the owner only owes $120,000. Well, the fix and flip investor is buying that property for $150,000. It needs $50,000 in renovation, but they don't have any money. So they need money for the $25,000 to pay the owner. Remember, the subject to is $125,000. They're buying it for $150,000. So they need the $25,000 to pay, right? Then they need $50,000 to renovate, but they don't have any money. What do we do? Simple. The $125,000 first trust stays in place as a subject to. The deed gets transferred to the investor's name. The hard money lender comes behind, puts a second trust on the property at $75,000. Now remember, the property is worth $300,000. So now the way it looks is the title is simple. The investor has the deed in their name, whatever LLC, 1234 Easy Street LLC. That's the owner. The first trust is still in the name of the old owner. The $75,000 hard money second trust is now in the name of 1234 Easy Street LLC. So you have two loans against the house in two different names, right? That who the debtor is, and then the deed is in there. So they simply fix and flip the house. You've given them $50,000 to renovate the house. The house is worth $300,000. The investor puts the house on the market, sells it at $300,000. The hard money lender gets paid back their $75,000. The subject to mortgage gets paid back their $125,000, and there you go.
Yeah.
Right. And
It's simple.
And one thing for anybody who's, on the newer side, and we have students who are literally have just started learning some of this. They need a mentor. Don't let your head spin on this, because we talk a lot about probably the hardest thing to do is to find the distressed asset and put it under contract.
That's right.
If this, like everything you just said, imagine going to a regular bank and they don't know you. They'd be like, sorry, don't waste my time. But if you find a good property and a good deal, then there are ways to finance you may not even know about right now. Because there's, asset-based hard money lenders tend to be smaller entrepreneurial people who are looking to make money. You can put sort of all sorts of deals together. They're business-to-business deals, so you have a lot of leeway. Yep. You don't have all this RESPA stuff that and all these regulations that you have in a standard loan on a house. So generally speaking, there's a lot of variation with the laws. But in any event, if you get that distressed property, come to a lender, whether it's these guys or somebody else, and you can work out a deal. Make sure you understand the deal. There are unscrupulous people out there will try to wring every dollar out of your thing or get your property. Yep. Our business model is loan, points, payoff, loan, points, payoff. And the person who's getting the loan is making a profit. This again is a win-win. I don't know how many wins are involved. That's what we're looking to do, and so we people can be creative in that scenario. So we'll talk about finding the distressed assets, but you do want to try to talk to these people in advance. Know some hard money lenders.
Well, you got to have a letter that represents that you can finance the property or get it in cash.
Right.
When you're doing your acquisition.
Right. So don't feel bad if you don't have money. Any money, literally, and you get a good enough deal, that may be okay. Or you think, well, we say it's great if you have $50,000 or something to put it, because a lot of lenders will want some skin in the game. So that's, I just wanted to interject that don't panic if you don't understand all of this. We're just giving some examples and there's probably an infinite variation on this.
And so let's just go back and talk about that rate of return. We've already talked about a hard money example where the investor got a infinite return. Well, this return is very similar. So I bought the house. It's worth $300. It needs a little bit of work. I bought it for $150. I needed $25,000 for the down payment on the subject to. I needed $50,000 to renovate it. But a hard money lender is giving me the $75 plus the $125 is $200. So how much money have I put down in that deal? If it rhymes with hero, it's zero. Mm-hmm. So what am I spending as the investor to keep this property? I've already got a 100% loan on this property that has $100,000 in equity. So what am I paying? I'm paying points on the hard money loan, $75,000. You might pay 3 to 5 points. 1 point is 1% of the loan. So I'm paying some closing costs to buy it. So let's say that's $10,000. Then, now, do I have any renovation costs?
You said it's small.
No, I don't have any because the $50,000 is already covered in the loan.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I've got $10,000 of my own money into the deal on closing costs for the unscrupulous or the expensive hard money lender.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say it's $10,000. Then I've got holding costs on the property. I've got taxes. I've got insurance. I've got to make payments to the hard money lender, and I've got to make payments to $125,000 subject to trust. So I've got ongoing holding costs. So let's say I fix and flip this house in 3 months. The $50,000 renovation's done. I'm out of it 90 days. So I spent, let's say, $10,000 in holding costs. I've got $10,000 in buying costs. So now I'm in it for $20,000.
Yeah.
Now I've sold it for $300,000. Let's say I pay a real estate agent 3%, 1% more to sell it. So now I've sold it $10,000. So now I've got buying costs at $10,000, holding costs at $10,000, selling costs at $10,000. So that's $30,000. that I've spent on my own money, but I've just made a profit of $70,000.
It's a good return all day.
Not a bad return, right?
Right, and a lot of those costs are even paid at closing.
Right.
You don't necessarily have to pay them up front with your own money.
That's exactly right.
But and again, people, wow, what you have done, the person who's taken the loans, if you're smart, you're spending time managing your contractor.
That's right.
Maybe you are a contractor, but you're managing. You're going every day if you can. Or every night or whatever your schedule allows. You're talking to people. You're solving problems that have come up. If there's surprises, you're trying to keep the cost down. So there is effort involved in order to earn that money, and you earn that much more by being cautious. Yep. But if you think about it, what's a few hours of doing that and problem solving if your return is pretty good like that?
You're talking about a 200+% return over a 90 to 120 day window of time. You annualize that, the return's unbelievable.
Right. So let's think about this, right? So let's just say it's $60,000. Let's not say it's $70,000.
Right. Well,
you say
something
30.
comes up, an extra. I mean, there's a problem you didn't see when you evaluated the property. It happens.
200%.
Yeah.
Right. So but you made 200% how many months?
That's what I just said. 200%.
3 months.
You got 3 months, 4 times a year.
Right.
Do the math.
Would you do it over and over and over again?
Well, you wouldn't. You do it till you couldn't do it anything else.
It's like potato chips. You can have another Pringles or whatever
I got
it is.
just one more question about getting leverage, and this gets into a word I hear a lot of people call. They say, "Hey, are you a gap funder?" Mm-hmm. And well, we're a hard money lender, and we don't work with gap funders. But what is gap funding?
All right, let's take that same example. Let's say that we have the 125 subject to, I've got the $75,000 second trust from a hard money lender. Well, you've got to close that deal. Remember, I don't have any money, but we just said earlier, well, it's going to cost you $10,000 to close it. So you got to bring $10,000 to close it. You got to pay points. You got to, pay title company fees, lawyer fees, your favorite kind of fees.
Yeah.
You got to pay interest. You got to pay all kinds of fees to close it. Well, let's say I don't have $10,000.
Sure.
Well, I go to somebody called a gap funder. I knock on their door. I say, hey, I got this great investment. I'm buying this property at $200,000. I'm buying it at $150,000. It's worth $300,000. It only needs $50,000 of work. I've got to come up with $10,000.
You lay out the whole deal for them. Yeah.
I need $10,000. And then I go to you. I'm like, Sam or Ed, if you give me $10,000 today, I will give you $15,000 in 3 months.
Ooh, yeah. 50%. That's pretty good for me, the gap funder.
You might know me or you might not know me. And you're like, oh, that sounds interesting.
Oh, God, family. Yeah.
Right, family and friends.
Ooh,
right, family and friends. But if I say $10,000, I write you a promissory note of $15,000, and I'll pay you back in 6 months, you're probably going to do it if you know me and my reputation. That's called a gap funder. And where the term comes from is that you guys are funding the gap in the deal. Remember, I've got to pay $10,000 to close it. I have zero. So my gap to close that deal is $10,000. You're solving my gap.
Well, and the reason a lot of people don't want to do it, that 50% perked my ears up. Yeah. But the reality is you're way at the end of the payoff list.
If things go south, you fall in the gap.
You're the first one who is fill the gap with no money, and so that's a problem. And a lot of hard money lenders will in the contract say, just like with regular houses, there's no other people providing funding, because the hard money lender in some deals wants you to have that $10,000 of your money.
They want it to be your money, so you're committed to it.
Right.
And then we found plenty of deals where the people got gap funding, and the reason we don't know is they simply sign that they don't have any, and they don't record anything. So it never becomes of interest until later on. Right. If something goes wrong, then you find out, this guy calls you, hey, I'm the gap funder, and you're like, who are you? And then you're in that.
And it can create, or they record something much later on the deal.
Oh, exactly. That's exactly what
that's the one that's really
that's
a problem.
That's exactly right.
I've seen that a few
and that happened to us in D.C. on a deal where we foreclosed on it. And literally the second and third trust showed up literally 5 days before the foreclosure auction sale.
Yeah, we've seen that in several.
Yeah. Well,
and that was a big zero gap.
Yeah.
They fell into the gap.
They fell into the gap. Then they're gone.
They fell into the gap.
But what it does to the prime, this is a sort of higher level thing, but for the hard money lender, causes a lot of problems because the person who fails they might say, I failed, I'm good, here, take the deed in lieu of foreclosure.
Yeah,
but
no.
you can't do that if
when
there's another
the
person
funder-
above.
Yeah, no.
You have to do all the foreclosure stuff, which could generate a deficiency judgment. Oh, it's just not good.
Kinds of lawyerly stuff.
All right. Well, we're keeping it on a positive note. So to wrap it up.
Oh, I don't like that.
Thinking in terms of financing, I'll start. I think the most important thing is that you find financing that fits your deal and that you talk to people about financing before you even find a deal. You have any thoughts on financing, Ed?
My thing is read, learn, and talk to people. Meet some hard money lenders. Watch this. Learn some of the scenarios. While you're looking for the distressed property, so you're ready to go. But if you find a great deal, well, heck, go find funding for that. But the thing is, if you find a good deal, you're gonna get funding, and you can maximize though what the best funding is for that scenario, and it really depends. So that's my takeaway.
Yeah, my conclusion is very simple. Number one, find that distressed asset. None of this would have ever happened if you didn't find a distressed townhouse for $150 that's worth $300. Number one, find your distressed asset. Number two, before you even understand your financing options, you've got to understand your disposition strategy. Are you gonna sell it? Are you gonna fix and flip it? Are you gonna wholesale it, which is a wholesale and a retail type of disposition? Are you gonna keep it as a buy and hold? So whatever your disposition strategy is, that will drive your need for financing. Yeah. And a lot of times, if you're gonna close in a week or less and you need that high leverage point, you're going to have to go the route of hard money lending. There's nothing wrong with hard money lending. You use it to your advantage. You use it to execute on your project. You use it for leverage. You use it for timeliness. So in our case, we're being a little biased. We think in most cases, hard money is the way to go.
Get the most leverage.
That's that.